Well, let's get to our first discussion this afternoon. Director General of Franco-Nigeria Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Moses Umoru, has said Nigeria represents about 20% of France's trade with sub-Saharan Africa. He said the country stands as France's primary trading partner in the region and ranks fourth overall in Africa, following Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia. Mr. Umoru highlighted France's substantial business presence in the country, with over 100 companies providing more than 10,000 direct jobs. He emphasized France's strategic role in Nigeria's development through the ongoing support from the French development agencies, which funds sustainable projects, and through business France's efforts to facilitate French companies' entries into Nigerian markets across various sectors. Let's talk to Mr. Moses Umoru, the Director General of Franco-Nigeria Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He's live in the studio. Good afternoon, Sir Umoru. It's good to have you in.
Good afternoon. Great to be here.
Yes, I think it's the first time I'm having you this year.
Absolutely.
Well, it's not too late to say Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, of course.
And thanks for coming into the studio.
Like they say in French, bon année.
Well, like I said in my introduction,
Yes.
a lot has been happening between France and Nigeria before now. Coincidentally, the president is in France. Now he's going to go for the AU summit from France. So there's been this relationship, and it's been on, and the president is trying to strengthen it since he came into office.
Yes.
But let's look at where we are and the focus of trying to strengthen the ties. What do you make of it?
Yes, I will start by saying, because of course the lingua at the moment is geopolitics. At the moment, everybody's talking about geopolitics. And let me say that geopolitics trumps the business environment. For businesses to grow, it is important that the political environment can be able to activate that. And why am I saying this? The President of the Republic of France, Emmanuel Macron, has been intentional about French companies' presence in Nigeria and Nigerian setting up presence in France. And since he came into power in France, a lot of things have been done. At the moment, just a few weeks ago, just the end of last year, 300 million euros pledge was made to the Nigerian business environment from the French development agency, AFD, Propaco, and all of that to fund sustainable projects in Nigeria. And let me say this, not to sound theoretical. At the moment, Total Energies, for example, has pledged $1 billion per year for the next 10 years in the Nigerian business environment. At the moment, Speak Global Energy Services Nigeria Limited, in partnership with Schneider Electric, is working with Flour Mills to work on the fertilizer plants in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria. At the moment, in line with CBN's backward integration program, companies like Danone Farm Milk, they are training Nigerian farmers to be able to produce milk locally for their ice creams and the rest of them. At the moment, CFAO, in line with the federal government drives for CNG vehicles, they have pledged that they are going to be coming in with CNG-powered vehicles into Nigeria from 2025, 2026 in the medium term and long term. And these are French companies intentionally coming into the Nigerian business environment and investing in Nigeria. The Chamber of Commerce, alongside with Promo Salon, for example, I'm going to give a perfect case because I lead that delegation with Promo Salon every year for the past 4 years. I've been taking over 20 Nigerian companies to the north of France, in the agricultural region. And what we have seen, Tolu, is the French expertise in equipment, not just equipment that does last in agriculture and in renewable energy. And these are things that we have leveraged on, and there's been a lot of partnerships in that area, and we have seen growth in that sector. So what I'm saying is that the President of France, through geopolitics, has opened the business environment to ensure that there is a collaboration between French and Nigerian companies. You all already know that Access Bank PLC, for example, has a presence in Paris. Zenith Bank entered there last year, and UBA has signed a commercial agreement to set up a commercial presence in Paris because they believe. What are the banks doing there? Because there is trade and there is commercial relationship. So let's foster that, ensure that there is a payment system that goes between France and Nigeria. So in the seamlessly. So in the next 3, 4, 5 years, we're expecting greater participation of French companies in Nigeria. There's been a lot of argument around most companies leaving Nigeria and the rest of them. So the question I have to ask is, have you seen any French company living Nigeria at the moment? There is none at the moment. So the French companies are intentional within the Nigerian business environment. You've given the stats already. 20% within sub-Saharan African region, over 4 billion euros trade between France and Nigeria. And let me say something. A lot of people, when you talk about the 4 billion euros investment trade between France and Nigeria, they will say things like, oh, it is oil and gas, and it is gas flaring and the rest of them. Ranking, of course, oil and gas ranking, gas second, and guess what third is? Soya beans exports from Nigeria to France.
Wow.
Over 78 billion
Wow.
euros, million euros. Yes, so it's ranking third is agriculture right now, because agriculture in France is massive, and a lot of collaborations with Nigerian companies in the agricultural space they are going on. So the future is very, very bright as far as France-Nigeria relationship is concerned. There are problems. Definitely there are problems. But you see companies like NG, for example, solving Nigerians' power problems. Schneider Electric being intentional about creating off-grid solar solutions in the Nigerian business environment, helping rural areas and the rest of them. So there's intentionality. So in a place where there are problems, it creates what we call businesses, chances for businesses to be born. And that's what French companies are leveraging on and taking, and then they are scaling up with it.
Now, there should be conversations around attracting more investment,
Absolutely.
which is what the president is leading, and many have been talking about that. Now that we see this deliberate effort by the president, what sort of conversation are you expecting now, particularly from the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment? We have a minister that everyone believes that expects a lot from her, and they believe she should or she can deliver.
Yeah.
What do you think? What sort of conversation should we be having now to improve and strengthen ties?
Yeah, I must say that Dr. Jumoke Odiole, which you just mentioned, is a policy lady. Right, with our experience with PEBEC and being the senior special advisor to the president on the ease of doing business. And I remember working with her. We have worked with her very, very well. And she was just with us a few weeks ago for our January breakfast meeting where we talked about the Nigerian macroeconomic space for 2025. And one thing that she has done, and one thing that the ministry has shown under her leadership, is the fact that we are going to bring a lot of MDAs together to be able to deal with issues headlong. Because the problem we've had over time is a case of, a lot of restrictions. French companies are talking to NAFDAC individually and the rest of them. French companies are talking to the customs. They're trying to negotiate a lot of tariffs and all of that. Individual companies are talking to these people. But under Dr. Jumoke's leadership, we're bringing all these MDAs together and then having a seat in the room, and we produce, we provide a global picture of the needs of French companies in Nigeria, and then we can be able to eliminate the bottlenecks. The problem has been the bottlenecks, actually. The bottlenecks from the understanding, and this is what I have to say, the understanding of policymakers in implementation of policies. So most of the times you find us that we are trying to interpret what is on the books to those that are supposed to be implementing it. And it's a lot of work for us. So the ministry is coming to help us to making that smooth, and then we can have that leeway, and then, of course, build the relationship between France and Nigeria.
So that takes us to the next issue, which are the challenges.
Absolutely.
These challenges were raised during the macroeconomic discussion or macroeconomic outlook for 2025, which is still ongoing. Many organizations are having that conversation now, looking at the risks and the prospects and all of that. For French companies now directly, what are those risks and what are those prospects that you're looking at? Yeah,
so what we're looking at the Chamber of Commerce and French company and the French business community in general is that we have looked at the past 2 years. And we have seen policy reforms. We talked about the Electricity Act of 2023 that has liberalized the electricity sector. And now we have a lot of multinational companies that are producing and distributing electricity instead of having to depend on the national grid at the moment. So while we have looked at that, we say, okay, fine, this policy is actually working from that area. We have seen the liberalization of the FX market, which has, of course, caused a bit of inflation from that end. We have seen the removal of fuel subsidy and the intentionality of government to ensure that this actually works. Dangote refinery upstream, competing with NNPC refinery, making is the definition of a liberal market, and that's exactly what we want. So we have seen it already. And if we look at the stats, for example, if we look at portfolio investment into Nigeria, we're also looking at that too, because traction must speak, figures have to speak. Portfolio, for example, at the end of 2024, we're seeing that the market capitalization went around 61.1 trillion naira from around 40.9 trillion naira in 2023. Wow. And we have seen that Nigerians' trade figures increased to 8 billion per year from 1 billion in 2023. So we've seen that a lot of tractions are coming from there by virtue of these policies. And what French companies are saying, yes, let's keep watching. It is harsh in short term. It is harsh in short term. And we have an argument that if the government keeps saying long term, in the long term, we are all dead. John Kent say that, right? But at the same time, we are seeing a lot of some short term gains already from the portfolio side. I know FDI is different from FPI.
Yeah, it is.
Definitely.
Many say we want the FDIs to come.
It starts from the portfolio side, and then we are seeing traction from that. Look at Eurobond, for example, for last year, that was overly subscribed, right? So we're looking at, we are.
So you think confidence is coming back already?
Yeah, confidence is coming back already, actually, right? Confidence is coming back already. Informally, 30 December. Look at the effect in Lagos, for example. These are things we are seeing. So when we start seeing the traction, we believe that, okay, this traction, short-term, medium-term, is going to be sustained. And then what we are waiting for now is the tax bill. We are looking at that. We are watching that and critically. 60 taxes shrink to 10. Wonderful. If that comes up to stream, then there is clarity within the Nigerian business environment as to the regulation side of things, and then companies can be able to thrive and all of that. And those are things we're looking at. So French companies are showing a bit of confidence. It is harsh at the moment. I'm not going to come and paper to the cracks and tell you that it is easy. It is harsh at the moment, but we are seeing a lot of traction, and it is positive. I believe that if it's sustained, there can be growth, and there can be growth in the Nigerian business environment.
I'm looking at some specific sectors now where we can actually benefit from each other, where that handshake comes in. Like you said, it's no more just maybe oil and gas, gas things and all of that. I think agriculture is also somewhere we can explore now. And also, I think renewables are also ways where we can. So let's talk more around that and what efforts are being made by French companies around that space. Yeah,
there's intentionality about that. Like I mentioned already, Danone doing a lot with backward integration in the agricultural space. That is where they play, and that's where they play fully, right? We have a feed avenue in Abuja that is doing a lot of things regarding agriculture too, and exporting Nigerian agricultural produce to France. At the last time we had a conversation, hibiscus is leaving Abuja to Paris. As I'm talking to you at the moment, there are a lot of demands for soya beans, like I mentioned already, going to France and going to the north of France already for inputs for the milks and the rest of them. So there's intentionality from that space. And most importantly, brands like Schneider Electric bringing a lot of renewable energy, Speed Global Energy Services Limited, Total Energies. They're looking at the renewable energy space. A lot of investments are going into that from the medium term to the long term. I believe that with time, we'll see a lot of traction in that space. So there's intentionality there, and a lot of work being done. Beyond that, the mobility sector, like I mentioned to you already, right? Transportation, with AGL, for example, doing a lot of exporting goods. Or we know Air France, right? Taking us to France, and then, of course, taking goods and services and the rest of them to Paris and all of that. So a lot of work is being done in various sectors, not just oil and gas. Because when you mention France, they say it's oil and gas. No, it's agriculture, it's renewables, it's mobility, and even the health sector, international SOS. I would not even fail to mention that Sabah Lancet, for example, doing a lot in the health space, right? Ensuring that we have adequate facilities here in Nigeria where we can be able to treat Nigerians even at a moderate cost in Nigeria here.
I'll take you again to the forum you had, the breakfast forum you had. I must commend you, the quality of attendees and all of that. The minister was there, Mr. Tawi Dele was there, and all of that.
Dr. Muda was there.
These are the key guys, that are telling us what investors want to listen to them. I must agree with you. But in your thoughts, what is the outlook for Nigeria following these reforms? Some say the worst seems to have passed behind us, and we are getting to that point where we'll start to heave a sigh of relief. Do you agree to that moving on in 2025?
The World Bank has predicted already 3.5, 3.6% GDP growth rate in Nigeria. Nigeria is driven mostly by the service sector, right?
True.
And we're expecting, if you look at the financial sector.
And it performed well, I think, in last GDP.
Absolutely. The financial sector also performed a lot in terms of they are going north of 30% for the GDP. And we are saying that one thing that we have said is that just to divert a little bit, that the financial sector is supposed to be intentional to boost the real sector. It's very, very important. In the Nigerian business environment right now, all we want is injection into the circular flow of income. It is very, very key. So when you begin to hear policies, for example, just to delve a little bit, policies of the CBN, like around cash reserve ratio at 50%, the banks are holding 50%, the CBN is holding 50%, it's taking money supply away from the system when we're supposed to put in that in manufacturing. And then we hear things like the interest rate, MPR rate is around 27.25%, which is a bit high for manufacturers, causing inflation at the end of the day. So we expect that, we also advocated for that actually. We said if we want to have a 4.60% growth like predicted in our budget, we must ensure that we let some funds out. We need to let some funds out into the Nigerian business environment, inside the real sector, manufacturing, services, mobility, and the rest of them to be able to grow. But we are seeing Nigeria for 2025, the policies are already coming to stay. The worst has come in 2024, right? Policies, enactments, short-term shocks that we have seen. I mean, we were all shocked. We're talking about dollar at 1,600.
Yeah.
Fuel price
and
went.
At the point about 1,800.
Yeah, 1,800. Fuel price went to as high as
1,300,
1,200. Right now, we're seeing a bit of competition in that sector.
Very interesting.
And then it's coming down a bit. So I feel 2024, if you look at the graph now, it's coming down a bit in terms of cost area for businesses. And then we believe that it will keep going down. And clarity within the Nigerian business space, things are going to get clear and then things get better going forward.
For me, I think we're starting to see the interesting part of the regulation. I must say.
Yeah, and we're enjoying it.
I'm excited about that, you know.
Absolutely.
You can say, I want to go buy my fuel here. It's 970, it's 960 here, it's 980
and then you put it on reverse and go to the next one.
You know, and you go to the next one.
Absolutely.
That's one interesting thing that I have seen with regards to the regulation. Open market where everyone is. Even the marketers were threatening sometime last week that bringing in this fuel from abroad is a bit cheaper. And the next thing we saw was a slashing
price.
From, you know, so I think that commission is interesting. Let's wrap up this conversation with geopolitical issues that you started with. You talked about that. And we've seen what's been happening with tariffs and all of that from Donald Trump. That everywhere seems to be on heat. Everybody's talking about what is happening in America and how it affects everyone. What do you think? That say if you're scared of the heat, you don't stay in the kitchen.
Absolutely.
What do you make of it, and how do you think that would impact? Well, not just Nigeria now, even other countries. What do you think?
If you look at Donald Trump's policy right now to hit 25% tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and 10% on China, I think it's a protectionism policy to protect local industries in that country. But we understand that the incidence of tariffs is the final consumer. Right, because at the end of the day, the American businesses that are importing those goods from Canada, from Mexico, are the ones that are going to pay the tariffs, and not China, and not Canada, and not Mexico. So what it does is to open the eyes of these importers to be able to say, okay, fine, if the prices are now this high, well, now let's begin to look for substitutes within our country and all of that. And then if you look at these other countries, let's just talk about that a bit. Canada, as at today, close to 19% of their GDP is exported to the US. 76% of items produced in Canada is exported to US. The same thing with Mexico, right? But of course, China is a very, very big place and all of that. And from the US, less than 3% of their GDP, 2.7% of their GDP is exported to these countries combined. So if you look at it, there is already an imbalance of trade. And that's what Donald Trump is trying to correct. Is he correcting it the right way? And what opportunities do other countries now take from it? Now, the problem we have with the US is the high labor cost. So the reasons why these goods are coming from Mexico and coming from Canada is because of labor costs already. So if US considers their labor costs, which of course they would not, because it's going to cost a lot of protests. You want to cut salaries because you want to produce here, right? It's going to cost a lot of protests. But if they can consider that, or other countries can be able to produce these products, and I'm saying, how does it benefit Nigeria, for example? Of course, we are from the far Africa, right? Logistics costs, taking products from here, there. And beyond that, manufacturing sector in Nigeria is not doing well. If I look at our GDP, just the north of 2%, going back to 1, at times going to deficit because of high cost of production within the Nigerian business environment, you know, power, not inadequate power, and the rest of them. So we're not even leveraging on all these things, because normally it should have been a chance for us to be able to say, yes, the labor cost is very cheap here too. Labor cost is very cheap here. There would have been an opportunity for us to take advantage of that and say we can get these products across the US with lesser challenges. With lesser tariff. But the challenges, the macroeconomic challenges, are already hampering even the possibility of thinking towards that direction. And that's exactly what it is for us.
Interesting conversation with you as always. Mr. Moses Umoru is the Director General, Franco Nigeria Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He's been making real sense of Nigeria's and France's relationship, how it can be strengthened, and of course, other business ties, how we can improve the business ties one way or the other. Thank you again for coming through. Very much. It's good to see you. Thank you for your time.
And congratulations on this.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your commendation.